Tyler Rivera pressed the peanut butter sandwich into the hands of the man who looked like he'd lost everything, unaware he was offering comfort to the most dangerous crime boss in Chicago. What the 6-year-old saw was simple hurt, but what Johnny Salvatore felt was the first genuine kindness he'd received in years, and it would change everything. Tell us your city below, and hit subscribe to join our global community. Enjoy the story. Johnny Salvatore sat on the weathered park bench like a king stripped of his crown, his $1,000 suit rumpled and his dark eyes hollow with defeat. The Lincoln Park playground buzzed with afternoon activity, but he saw none of it. 3 months. That's how long his empire had been crumbling piece by piece, betrayal by betrayal. The Torino family had systematically dismantled everything his father had built, everything Johnny had expanded. His legitimate businesses were hemorrhaging money. His loyal soldiers were defecting. And worse, his reputation as an untouchable don was disintegrating. At 40, Johnny had ruled Chicago's underworld with an iron fist for 7 years. He'd survived assassination attempts, federal investigations, and rival family wars. But he'd never faced anything like this methodical destruction of his legacy. The Torinos weren't just taking his territory, they were humiliating him, making him look weak. In their world, perception was reality, and reality was that Don Johnny Salvatore was finished. His phone buzzed with another message from Marco, his consigliere. Need to talk. Situation worse. Johnny deleted it without reading the details. He knew the situation. Half his crew had already jumped ship, taking his secrets with them. The other half were waiting to see if he'd survive the week. His own blood, his nephew Vincent, had called this morning to suggest Johnny take a vacation while things settled down. Translation: disappear before the Torinos decided to make his downfall permanent. Johnny stared at his hands, remembering when they'd commanded respect through gesture alone. Now they felt empty, useless. He'd built his empire on 3 pillars: fear, respect, and loyalty. The first 2 were gone, and the third was proving fragile as glass. "Mister," the small voice broke through Johnny's dark thoughts. He looked up to find a boy, maybe 6 years old, standing uncertainly a few feet away. The child had sandy brown hair and bright green eyes that radiated concern far too mature for his age. He wore a Pokemon t-shirt and carried a small paper bag that smelled like peanut butter. "Mister, are you sad?" Johnny blinked, caught off guard. When was the last time anyone had asked about his feelings? In his world, showing emotion was showing weakness. "I'm fine, kid." The boy stepped closer, studying Johnny's face with the brutal honesty only children possessed. "You don't look fine. You look like how I felt when my daddy went to heaven." Something twisted in Johnny's chest. He'd forgotten what genuine concern felt like, uncomplicated by agenda or fear. "I'm sorry about your father." "That's okay. Mommy says he's watching over us now." The boy opened his paper bag and pulled out a sandwich wrapped in plastic. "Are you hungry?" "My mommy packed extra 'cause I'm growing and need lots of food." "But I already ate at school." Johnny stared at the offered sandwich. When was the last time someone had offered him something without wanting something in return? The gesture was so innocent, so pure, it seemed to belong to a different universe than the one he inhabited. "You don't even know me." "So? You're sad and hungry looks sad to me." The boy placed the sandwich on the bench between them. "My mommy says sharing makes everything better. Maybe it'll help you feel not sad." "Your mother sounds like a smart woman." "She is. She's a nurse and helps sick people get better. Maybe she could help you too. 'Cause you look kinda sick in your heart." Out of the mouths of babes. Johnny felt his throat tighten with an emotion he hadn't experienced in decades. "What's your name, kid?" "Tyler Rivera. What's yours?" "Johnny." Tyler grinned, pleased to have solved the mystery of the sad stranger's identity. "Nice to meet you, Johnny. I gotta go now 'cause Mommy's picking me up soon, but you should eat that sandwich. Peanut butter makes everything better." As Tyler ran toward the playground equipment, Johnny found himself unwrapping the sandwich. It was simple, made with love on store-brand bread, and it tasted better than any meal he'd eaten in months. For the first time in weeks, something other than rage and despair filled his chest. Hope, fragile and foreign, but unmistakably real. From across the playground, a young woman with long auburn hair was walking toward them, her nurse's scrubs visible under an open jacket. She moved with purpose and grace, scanning the area until her eyes found Tyler. When she spotted her son talking to a stranger, her pace quickened, protective instincts clearly engaged. Johnny watched her approach, struck by the natural beauty that radiated from her despite obvious fatigue. She was probably in her late 20s, with the kind of exhausted determination he recognized in single mothers. As she drew closer, he could see the wariness in her green eyes, the same shade as Tyler's. "Tyler, honey, what did I tell you about talking to strangers?" "But, Mommy," Johnny was sad. "I gave him my extra sandwich like you taught me." The woman's gaze moved from her son to Johnny, and he saw her taking in his expensive suit, his obvious wealth, the hardness that clung to him like cologne. Her maternal radar was clearly pinging warnings. "That was very kind of you, baby. But we need to go home now." She reached for Tyler's hand while keeping Johnny in her peripheral vision. "Say goodbye." "Bye, Johnny. I hope you feel better." As mother and son walked away, Johnny heard Tyler's excited chatter about his new friend and the woman's gentle but firm explanation about being careful with strangers. He should have felt dismissed, forgotten. Instead, he found himself hoping he'd see them again. The sandwich wrapper crinkled in his pocket as he stood. For the first time in months, Johnny Salvatore had a reason to return to the same place tomorrow. Emmy Rivera arrived at Lincoln Park 30 minutes early the next day, telling herself it was because Tyler needed extra playground time after being cooped up inside during yesterday's rain. It had nothing to do with the mysterious man who'd looked so lost, so human, despite the obvious wealth and danger that seemed to surround him like an aura. As a trauma nurse, Emmy had developed strong instincts about people. She could spot addiction, abuse, and desperation from across a hospital room. The man Tyler had befriended radiated power and control, but underneath she'd glimpsed something broken, something that reminded her too much of herself in the months after David's death. "Mommy, there's Johnny!" Tyler's excited shout drew her attention to the same bench where she'd found them yesterday. The man, Johnny, was feeding breadcrumbs to a small group of pigeons with the focused attention of someone grateful for any distraction from his thoughts. Before Emmy could stop him, Tyler had broken free and was racing across the playground. She followed, her heart doing something complicated when Johnny's face transformed at Tyler's approach. The hardness melted away, replaced by genuine warmth that made him look younger, less dangerous. "Tyler, you came back. I told you I would. Did you eat the sandwich? Are you feeling better?" Johnny's dark eyes found Emmy's over Tyler's head. "Much better, thanks to you. This is my mommy. Her name's Emmy, and she's the best nurse in the whole world." Tyler exaggerates. "But he's sweet." Emmy approached cautiously, still unable to shake the feeling that this man was more than he appeared. "I'm Emmy Rivera, Johnny Salvatore." He stood, extending his hand with old-fashioned courtesy. His handshake was firm but gentle, calloused in ways that suggested he was no stranger to physical work, despite his obvious wealth. "Are you feeling better today?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, her nurturing nature overriding her caution. Something flickered in his expression. "Your son asked me the same thing yesterday. Most people don't." "Don't what?" "Don't care if a stranger is struggling." Emmy studied his face, seeing the careful mask that couldn't quite hide whatever pain lived underneath. "Tyler's father taught him to be kind to everyone. It's one of the best gifts he gave our son." Past tense? Johnny's voice was careful, professional sympathy rather than casual curiosity. "David died 2 years ago." "Car accident?" Emmy glanced at Tyler, who was now attempting to teach the pigeons to play catch with breadcrumbs. "It's been just us since then. I'm sorry for your loss. Your husband raised a remarkable boy." "He did." Tyler doesn't remember much about his father, but he inherited David's big heart. Emmy sat on the edge of the bench, maintaining polite distance. "What about you? Do you have children?" Johnny's expression darkened almost imperceptibly. "No, my lifestyle isn't conducive to family life." The way he said it sent a small chill down Emmy's spine. There was weight behind those words, implications she wasn't sure she wanted to understand. "What do you do for work?" "I run a family business, import-export, some real estate ventures." The answer was smooth, practiced, but didn't explain the sadness Tyler had recognized or the controlled danger Emmy sensed. "Mommy, can Johnny come to dinner? He looks like he doesn't eat enough vegetables." Heat flooded Emmy's cheeks. "Tyler, you can't just invite people." "It's all right." Johnny's smile was genuine but tinged with regret. "I appreciate the invitation, Tyler, but I'm sure your mother has plans." Emmy found herself studying Johnny's face, seeing past the expensive clothes and carefully controlled demeanor to the loneliness underneath. When was the last time someone had invited him to dinner without wanting something in return? When had anyone seen him as just a man instead of whatever powerful position he held? Actually, she heard herself saying, we're having spaghetti tonight. Nothing fancy, but there's always enough for one more. Johnny's surprise was so complete, so vulnerable, that Emmy knew her instincts were right. This was a man who'd forgotten what simple kindness felt like. I couldn't impose. It's not an imposition if we're offering. Emmy stood. Decision made. 7 o'clock. The address is 412 Maple Street, apartment 2B. Tyler, say goodbye to Johnny. As they walked away, Jimmy heard Tyler chattering about showing Johnny his Pokemon cards and whether he liked chocolate milk with dinner. She didn't look back, but she could feel Johnny watching them leave, probably as surprised by her invitation as she was by her own boldness. That evening, Emmy changed clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a simple blue sweater that brought out her eyes. She told herself she was just being polite, but the truth was more complicated. Johnny Salvatore intrigued her in ways that probably weren't wise for a single mother trying to build a quiet, safe life. At exactly 7 o'clock, her doorbell rang. Tyler raced to answer it, revealing Johnny transformed from the dejected man in the park. He'd changed into dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders, and he carried a bottle of wine that probably cost more than Emmy's monthly grocery budget. "For you," he said, offering the wine with careful formality. "And this is for Tyler." He produced a small wrapped package that made Tyler's eyes widen. Inside was a rare Pokemon card Tyler had been saving his allowance to buy, the kind that cost $50 at the hobby shop. "Johnny, you didn't need to," Emmy began. "It's just a thank you for the sandwich yesterday and for this." He gestured around her small but cozy apartment with its second-hand furniture and family photos. "I can't remember the last time someone welcomed me into their home without ulterior motives." Again, that weight behind his words, the suggestion of a life where kindness was rare, where every interaction came with strings attached. Emmy found herself wanting to ask questions she probably shouldn't ask, wanting to understand what had put that guarded look in his eyes. Dinner was surprisingly easy. Johnny was charming without being overwhelming, asking Tyler about school and Pokemon with genuine interest. He complimented Emmy's cooking with the appreciation of someone who rarely experienced homemade meals. When Tyler inevitably spilled marinara sauce on his shirt, Johnny helped clean up without judgment, his movement suggesting familiarity with domestic crises. "You're good with kids," Emmy observed, as they did dishes together while Tyler played in the living room. "I was one once, believe it or not." Johnny's smile was rueful. "Though sometimes it feels like a different lifetime." What changed? The question hung between them as Johnny dried the same plate for the 3rd time. Finally, he set it down and turned to face her. Responsibility, family obligations, choices that seemed right at the time but led places I never expected. Emmy studied his profile, seeing the tension in his jaw, the weight of unspoken regrets. "It's never too late to make different choices, isn't it?" His voice was so soft she almost missed it. "Some paths don't allow for course corrections." Before she could respond, Tyler appeared in the kitchen doorway, yawning despite his attempts to stay awake. "Johnny, will you come back tomorrow? We could feed the ducks instead of pigeons." Johnny's expression softened as he looked at the sleepy boy. "If it's okay with your mother." Emmy felt something shift inside her chest, a warning and an invitation all at once. "We'll see." After Johnny left, Tyler chatted excitedly about their guest while Emmy tucked him into bed. "I like Johnny, Mummy. He's sad like you were when Daddy died, but he's getting better. Maybe we can help him not be sad anymore." Lying in her own bed later, Emmy stared at the ceiling and wondered what she was getting herself into. Every instinct told her Johnny Salvatore was dangerous, that his wealth came from sources she wouldn't approve of, that getting involved with him would complicate her carefully controlled life. But she also couldn't forget the way he'd looked at Tyler, like someone starved for innocence and hope, or the way he'd helped with dishes like he'd forgotten what normal felt like, or the careful loneliness in his voice when he talked about choices and paths. Maybe Tyler was right. Maybe they could help Johnny remember what it felt like to be simply human. The question was, what would that cost them? 2 weeks of evening visits had established a routine that felt dangerously normal. Johnny would arrive precisely at 7, always bearing small gifts for Tyler and thoughtful additions to their simple dinners. Wine, fresh flowers, gourmet ingredients that transformed Emmy's basic cooking into something special. Tyler had begun setting 3 places at the table without being asked. Emmy found herself looking forward to Johnny's visits with an anticipation that troubled her. He was intelligent, funny, surprisingly gentle with Tyler, and devastatingly attractive when he forgot to maintain his careful composure. But the warning signs were impossible to ignore: the expensive watch that cost more than her annual salary, the way his phone calls were always taken in private, the deference shown by the restaurant staff when they'd taken Tyler for ice cream. Most telling was the day Tyler had innocently asked about Johnny's family. His answer had been careful, revealing nothing. "I have business associates, not family." That night, after Tyler was asleep, Emmy decided to trust her nursing instincts and confront the growing mystery directly. "Johnny, I need to ask you something, and I'd appreciate an honest answer." He looked up from the photo album Tyler had insisted on sharing, his expression immediately guarded. "Okay, what exactly is your family business?" The silence stretched between them like a held breath. Johnny's hands went still on the album pages, and when he finally met her eyes, she saw resignation mixed with something that might have been relief. "You don't really want to know the answer to that question, Emmy." "Yes, I do. Tyler's already attached to you, and so am I, if I'm being honest. I need to know what we're dealing with." Johnny closed the album carefully, his movements deliberate. "The Salvatore family controls significant business interests throughout Chicago and the surrounding areas. Import, export, construction, waste management, security services." "That's not an answer. That's a corporate profile." A ghost of a smile crossed his features. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" "I'm a single mother. I can't afford to be naive about the people in my son's life." Johnny stood and walked to her kitchen window, looking out at the ordinary neighborhood street below. When he spoke, his voice was careful, clinical. "My family has been in business for 3 generations. We provide services and maintain order in areas where traditional law enforcement is insufficient." Emmy's heart began to beat faster. "Services, protection, dispute resolution, financial arrangements for people who can't access traditional banking." He turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "We operate outside conventional legal frameworks." The careful euphemisms couldn't disguise the truth, but Emmy found herself wanting to hear him say it directly. "Johnny, what are you?" "I'm the head of a crime family, Emmy. What most people would call a mafia boss." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Emmy felt the room shift around her, familiar spaces suddenly foreign. The man who'd been patiently teaching Tyler chess for the past hour was a criminal. The hands that had helped her with dishes had likely done terrible things. The gentle voice that read Tyler bedtime stories gave orders that ended lives. "Oh my God, I should go." Johnny was already moving toward the door. "I should have stayed away from the beginning." "Wait!" The word escaped before Emmy could stop it. "Just wait." He paused, his hand on the doorknob, shoulders rigid with expectation of rejection. "Are you going to hurt us?" The question was barely a whisper. Johnny turned, his eyes blazing with something fierce and protective. "Never. I would die before letting anyone hurt you or Tyler." "But you hurt other people." "Yes." No hesitation, no justification, just brutal honesty. Emmy sank onto her couch, mind racing. Everything made sense now. The wealth, the loneliness, the careful way he spoke about his work, the sadness Tyler had recognized in the park. How did someone become what Johnny was? Had he chosen this life, or had it chosen him? "How long have you been Don Antonio Salvatore?" 7 years. But I was born into this life. My father expected me to take over, and when he died, I did. Did you want to? Something vulnerable flickered in his expression. I wanted to make him proud. I wanted to protect what he'd built. I was 25 and thought I understood what that meant. And now? Now I understand the cost. Johnny's voice was rough with regret. The isolation, the constant threat, the way everyone looks at you with either fear or calculation. I haven't had a genuine conversation with anyone in years until Tyler offered me that sandwich. Emmy studied his face, seeing past the controlled exterior to the man underneath. "Is that why you kept coming back?" "Because we don't know who you are. I kept coming back because for 2 hours every evening I get to remember what it feels like to be human instead of a title." The honesty in his voice made Emmy's chest tight. "What happens now that I know?" "That's up to you." Johnny's expression was carefully neutral. "I understand if you never want to see me again. I understand if you think I'm a monster." "Are you?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. "A monster?" Johnny was quiet for a long moment. "I've done things that would horrify you. I've made choices that keep me awake at night, but with you and Tyler—" He paused, searching for words. "With you, I remember the man I might have been in a different life." Emmy felt tears prick her eyes. This was exactly the kind of situation David would have warned her against. Getting involved with someone whose world operated outside the law, someone who could bring danger to their doorstep. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to ask Johnny to leave and never come back. But Tyler's words echoed in her mind. "He's sad like you were when Daddy died, but he's getting better." "Tyler adores you," she said finally. "Tyler is the best part of my day. And I—" She took a shaky breath. A shaky— "I care about you more than I should." Hope flickered in Johnny's dark eyes. "Emmy, but I need time to think, to figure out what this means, what it could mean for Tyler." Johnny nodded, understanding and disappointment warring in his expression. "Of course, take all the time you need. Will you stay away until I decide?" The question clearly hurt, but Johnny's voice remained steady. "If that's what you need." After he left, Emmy sat in her quiet apartment, surrounded by the small gifts he'd brought, the wine glasses they'd shared, the chessboard where he'd been teaching Tyler strategy. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. Johnny Salvatore was a criminal, a mafia boss, a man whose world was built on violence and fear, but he was also the man who'd listened to Tyler's Pokémon stories with genuine interest, who'd helped with dishes without being asked, who'd looked at her son with such careful tenderness it made her heart ache. The question wasn't whether Johnny was dangerous. The question was whether the man she'd glimpsed underneath the title was worth the risk. 3 days of silence felt like 3 years. Emmy threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts at the hospital to avoid thinking about Johnny's revelation or the decision weighing on her heart. But Tyler asked about their friend constantly, wondering why Johnny had stopped coming to dinner, if he was sad again, if they'd done something wrong. "He's just busy with work, sweetheart," Emmy explained for the 10th time, hating the lie even as it protected them both from complications she wasn't ready to discuss. "But what if he's sad again? What if he needs our help?" The innocent questions pierced her chest every time. Tyler had no context for understanding what Johnny really was, no framework for comprehending the world of organized crime. To him, Johnny was simply a lonely man who'd become their friend, someone who needed the same kindness Tyler had shown that day in the park. On Thursday evening, Emmy was loading the dishwasher when her phone rang. Unknown number, but something compelled her to answer. "Emmy Rivera? This is Marco Ricci. I work with Johnny Salvatore." Her blood went cold. "What do you want?" "Mr. Salvatore is in the hospital. He's been asking for you." The dish slipped from Emmy's hands, shattering against the kitchen floor. "What happened?" "There was an incident with a rival organization. He's stable, but—" Marco's voice was carefully controlled. "He specifically requested that we call you if anything happened. Said you were important to him." Emmy's mind raced. Johnny was hurt, possibly seriously. He was alone in a hospital, probably surrounded by the same dangerous world that had put him there. Everything rational told her to hang up, to protect herself and Tyler from getting pulled deeper into Johnny's world. Instead, she heard herself asking, "Which hospital?" "Northwestern Memorial, Private Wing, Room 412. "Ma'am, he made me promise that if you came, we'd arrange protection for you and your son, just in case." The casual mention of needing protection sent ice through Emmy's veins. "Protection from what?" "The people who hurt Mr. Salvatore know he cares about you. In our world, that makes you valuable." After hanging up, Emmy stared at her reflection in the kitchen window. This was it, the moment that would define everything. She could stay safe, keep Tyler safe, pretend Johnny Salvatore had never walked into their lives, or she could choose to care about someone whose world was dangerous, complicated, and possibly deadly. "Mrs. Chen," Emmy called her elderly neighbor, who'd become Tyler's unofficial grandmother since they'd moved into the building. "I have an emergency at work. Could Tyler stay with you tonight?" Northwestern Memorial's private wing was quieter, more luxurious than the trauma unit where Emmy worked. The elevator ride to the 4th floor gave her time to second-guess her decision, but when she reached room 412 and saw Johnny through the glass door, all her doubts evaporated. He looked smaller in the hospital bed, more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. Dark bruises covered his face, his left arm was in a sling, and machines monitored his vital signs with steady beeps. But what struck her most was how alone he appeared, despite the obvious wealth reflected in his private suite. "Mr. Salvatore." A large man in an expensive suit stood as she approached. "I'm Vincent, his security. He's been awake but groggy from the pain medication. Is he going to be okay? Broken ribs? Concussion? Dislocated shoulder? Could have been much worse." Vincent's expression was carefully neutral. "He'll be glad you came." Emmy entered the room quietly, her nursing instincts immediately cataloguing Johnny's condition. The bruising was extensive, but consistent with a severe beating rather than gunshot wounds. Someone had wanted to hurt him, not kill him. "Emmy?" Johnny's voice was rough, his eyes struggling to focus. "You came." "Of course I came." She approached the bed, her heart clenching at the relief in his expression. "How do you feel?" "Like I was hit by a truck driven by 3 guys who don't like me very much." His attempt at humor was undercut by the pain medications slurring his words. "You shouldn't be here, it's not safe. According to your Mr. Ricci, nowhere is safe for me now." Johnny's expression darkened. Whatever pain medication couldn't quite suppress his protective instincts. "Marco told you about the protection detail? He mentioned that your enemies know you care about me." Emmy sat in the chair beside his bed, close enough to see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "Is that true? Do you care about me?" "I'm falling in love with you." Johnny's words were raw with honesty. "Which makes you a target, which is why I should have stayed away." The confession hung between them like a bridge Emmy could either cross or burn. Johnny loved her. This dangerous, powerful, complicated man was falling in love with her and Tyler, and that love had painted targets on their backs. "Who did this to you?" "The Torino family. They're making a play for my territory, trying to push me out through intimidation and violence." Johnny's voice hardened despite his injuries. "This was their way of sending a message." "What kind of message?" "That they know I've grown soft, that I have vulnerabilities they can exploit." Emmy felt cold understanding wash over her. "We're your vulnerability. You're my humanity," Johnny corrected, his hand reaching weakly toward her. "For the first time in years, I have something worth protecting beyond territory and reputation." Emmy took his hand, feeling the calluses and strength beneath the medical tape and IV lines. "What happens now?" "Now you go home, take Tyler somewhere safe, and forget you ever met me." "Is that what you want?" "What I want and what's safe are 2 different things." Johnny's eyes were growing heavy again, the medication pulling him back towards sleep. "I want to have dinner with you and Tyler every night for the rest of my life. I want to help Tyler with his homework and teach him how to throw a baseball. I want to wake up next to you and fall asleep holding you." Tears blurred Emmy's vision. "Johnny, but I won't risk your lives for my happiness. Not even for love." As Johnny drifted back to sleep, Emmy sat holding his hand and staring out the window at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, dangerous people were making plans that included her and Tyler. Somewhere out there, a war was building around the man she was falling in love with. The smart choice, the safe choice, was obvious, but love, Emmy was learning, rarely chose the smart path. When Vincent knocked softly and entered the room, Emmy had made her decision. "Mr. Vincent, I need you to explain exactly what this protection detail involves, and then I need you to tell me what Johnny needs to get back on his feet." "Ma'am?" "Tyler asked me what Johnny needed from us. I think it's time I gave him a real answer." Vincent Torino lit his cigar in the back booth of Russo's, blowing smoke toward the ceiling while his lieutenant delivered the report he'd been expecting. "Salvatore survived, boss. Banged up but breathing. And the woman showed up at the hospital." Vincent smiled, satisfaction warming his chest like expensive bourbon. "Perfect. He's attached, which means he's vulnerable. How's our inside man holding up?" "Marco's getting nervous. Says Salvatore's asking too many questions about the security breach." Marco's served his purpose. Time to eliminate loose ends. Vincent's voice carried the casual tone of someone ordering dinner. "But not yet. I want Salvatore to watch his world crumble completely before we finish this." "What about the woman and kid?" Vincent's smile widened. "They're the final piece. When the time is right, we take them. Salvatore will trade his entire empire to get them back, and once we have everything he's built." The threat hung in the smoky air, unfinished but understood. Across town, Emmy was experiencing her first taste of living under protection. 2 large men in dark suits had been stationed outside her apartment building since Johnny's release from the hospital 3 days earlier. Another team followed Tyler to and from school. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, had been vetted and approved for childcare duties. Even her shifts at the hospital were now coordinated with Johnny's security team. "This is insane," Emmy muttered. watching through her window as one of the guards walked the perimeter of the small playground where Tyler played. He's 6 years old. He shouldn't need bodyguards. Johnny, seated carefully on her couch with his ribs still healing, followed her gaze. I know. I hate that my problems have become yours. They became mine the moment I decided to care about you. Emmy turned from the window, studying his face. Despite the lingering bruises and the careful way he moved, Johnny looked more determined than defeated. What aren't you telling me? What do you mean? You're planning something. I can see it in your eyes. Johnny was quiet for a moment, then patted the cushion beside him. Come here. Emmy settled next to him, careful of his injuries, and immediately felt his tension through the contact. The beating was a message, Johnny said quietly. The Torinos wanted me to know they could reach me anywhere, anytime, but it was also a mistake. How? They let me live, which means they want something more than my death. They want my complete surrender. My territory, my businesses, my reputation. Everything. And you're not going to give them that. Johnny's smile was cold, and for the first time since she'd known him, Emmy glimpsed the dangerous man his enemies feared. I've been playing defense for months, trying to minimize casualties, hoping diplomacy might work. But the moment they made you and Tyler targets, this became personal. Johnny, what are you planning? To remind Chicago why my family has held power for 3 generations. His voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent of deadly promise. The Torinos think they've won, because they hurt me physically. But they've never faced the full force of a Salvatore who has something to protect. A chill ran down Emmy's spine. This was the other side of Johnny, not the gentleman who helped Tyler with homework, but the crime boss who'd built his reputation on strategic violence. Will it be dangerous? Extremely, which is why I need to ask something of you that I have no right to ask. Emmy steeled herself. What? I need you and Tyler to disappear for a while. A week, maybe 2. Somewhere the Torinos can't find you while I handle this situation. You want us to run. I want you safe. There's a difference. Emmy studied his face, seeing the conflict between his love for them and his need to protect his world. And after you handle the situation, then what? Then you come home to a life where you don't need bodyguards. Or we come home to find out you didn't survive handling the situation. Johnny's expression softened. Emmy? No. She stood abruptly, pacing to the window again. I won't run, Johnny. I won't take Tyler away from the life we've built here and spend every day wondering if you're alive or dead. You don't understand the risk. I understand perfectly. Emmy turned to face him, her voice steady despite the fear thrumming through her veins. I understand that you're about to go to war. I understand that people are probably going to die. I understand that you might not survive. Johnny started to speak, but she held up her hand. But I also understand that running away won't actually keep us safe, will it? If something happens to you, the Torinos will still see us as loose ends. And if you survive but we're not here, she paused, gathering courage, you'll go back to being the man I met in the park, alone and convinced he doesn't deserve anything good. Emmy, this isn't your fight. It became my fight when I chose you. She returned to the couch, taking his hand in both of hers. When Tyler chose you, we're not running. Johnny stared at their joined hands, his jaw working with unspoken arguments. Finally, he looked up, his dark eyes intense. If you stay, you follow security protocols absolutely. No arguing, no independence, no taking chances. Agreed. And if I tell you to run, if the situation becomes impossible, you take Tyler and disappear without looking back. Emmy hesitated, then nodded. If it comes to that, there's one more thing. Johnny's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. If this goes wrong, if something happens to me, Vincent will take over what's left of the organization. He has instructions to make sure you and Tyler are taken care of, financially and security-wise, for as long as necessary. The finality in his voice made Emmy's eyes burn with unshed tears. Don't talk like that. I need you to know that you'll be protected regardless of what happens to me. What I need, Emmy said, leaning closer, is for you to promise me you'll be careful, that you'll remember you have people who love you and are waiting for you to come home. Johnny's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. People? Tyler loves you. I love you. The words came easier than she'd expected. Whatever you're about to do, don't be reckless. Come back to us. I love you too, Johnny murmured, pulling her closer despite his injured ribs. Both of you. More than I ever thought possible. They were still holding each other when Tyler burst through the front door with his usual 6-year-old enthusiasm, followed by one of the guards who'd walked him home from Mrs. Chen's. "Johnny, are you feeling better? Can we play chess tonight? I practiced the move you taught me." Looking at Tyler's bright smile and feeling Emmy's warmth against his chest, Johnny made a silent promise. He would survive whatever was coming. He would end the Torino threat permanently, because for the first time in his life, Don Johnny Salvatore had a family worth fighting for. But across town, Vincent Torino was making his own plans, and the next move in their deadly game was already in motion. Diamonds, A Heart in the Shadows, chapters 6 to 10. The war began at dawn on a Tuesday with 3 Torino businesses mysteriously losing their operating licenses. By noon, their primary money laundering operation had been raided by federal agents acting on anonymous tips. By evening, Vincent Torino's nephew had been arrested on weapons charges that would keep him locked up for months. Johnny orchestrated it all from Emmy's living room, his laptop and encrypted phones transforming her cozy space into a command center. Vincent and Marco flanked him like generals, coordinating moves with military precision, while Tyler played quietly nearby, unaware that the chess strategies Johnny had taught him were being applied to a deadly real-world game. "The federal raids were brilliant," Vincent reported, his voice carrying grudging admiration. "Torino can't retaliate against law enforcement without bringing more heat down on his entire operation." "Phase 1, Johnny replied, his fingers dancing across the laptop keyboard. "By tomorrow, he'll realize this isn't random bad luck. He'll know I'm coming for everything he's built." Emmy watched from the kitchen where she was preparing dinner, her nursing instincts on high alert. Johnny moved differently now, more focused, more dangerous. The gentle man who helped Tyler with homework was still there, but layered beneath was the calculated strategist who'd survived 7 years leading a criminal empire. "How long before he retaliates?" she asked. "He's probably planning it now," Johnny admitted. "But Vincent has been feeding him false information for months. Every move he makes, we'll see coming." Emmy's blood went cold. "Vincent Torino has been getting inside information from our Vincent." "Different Vincent," Johnny said gently. "Vincent Torino is the enemy. Our Vincent here has been my right hand for 5 years. He's the one who's been playing double agent, making the Torinos think they have a source close to me." Relief flooded through Emmy, followed immediately by new worry. But if Vincent Torino finds out he's been deceived, then things get very ugly. "Very quickly," Vincent acknowledged, "which is why we need to move fast." Tyler looked up from his coloring book, his green eyes curious. "Are you guys playing the strategy game? Like chess, but with grown-up pieces?" Johnny's expression softened as he met Tyler's gaze. "Something like that, buddy. Just making sure all our important pieces stay safe." "Is Mommy a queen piece? Queens are the most powerful." "Your mother," Johnny said with absolute certainty, "is definitely a queen." That night, after Tyler was asleep, Johnny and Emmy sat on her small balcony, despite the October chill. The city sprawled below them, lights twinkling like fallen stars, beautiful and deceptively peaceful. "Are you scared?" Emmy asked, her hand finding his in the darkness. "Terrified," Johnny admitted. "Not of Vincent Torino or his crew. I've been dealing with men like them my entire adult life. I'm terrified of losing this." "This? You?" "Tyler. These quiet moments where I get to pretend I'm just a man in love instead of someone whose decisions get people hurt." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "I've never had anything worth losing before. You're not going to lose us. Emmy, you need to understand what's coming. This won't be clean or quick. Men are going to die. Maybe good men. Definitely bad men, but blood will be spilled before this ends. And you'll be in the middle of it. I'll be leading it." Johnny's voice was steady but somber. "I can't ask you to be okay with that." Emmy was quiet for a long moment, listening to the distant sounds of traffic. Normal people living normal lives. "Do you remember what Tyler said the first day we met you? That you looked sad like I did when David died?" "I remember. After David's funeral, I was so angry. Angry at the drunk driver who killed him, angry at God, angry at myself for all the things we'd never get to do together." Emmy turned to face Johnny in the dim light. "But mostly I was angry at how unfair it was, how one moment of someone else's recklessness destroyed everything we'd built. Emmy, the Torinos are trying to destroy everything you've built, everything your father built. I can't be angry at you for fighting back." Johnny stared at her, something like wonder in his expression. "How did I get so lucky?" "You gave a sandwich to a lonely little boy," Emmy said simply. "Everything else was just details." They were still holding hands when Johnny's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. His expression darkened as he read it. What? Vincent Torino just made his countermove. 3 of my legitimate businesses were firebombed tonight. Johnny stood abruptly. No one was hurt, but the message is clear. What does it mean? It means the gloves are off. It means tomorrow this gets much more dangerous. As if summoned by their conversation, Johnny's security team materialized on the balcony. Vincent appeared with 2 other men Emmy didn't recognize. Boss, we need to move. Torino's people have been spotted casing the building. Johnny was immediately in command mode. How many? At least 6, maybe more. They're trying to look like utility workers, but their positioning is all wrong for legitimate repairs. Emmy felt ice flood her veins. They know where we live. Evacuation protocols now, Johnny ordered. Vincent, get Emmy and Tyler to the safe house. Use Route 3, full detail. What about you? I'm going to have a conversation with Vincent Torino, tonight. Johnny, no. Emmy grabbed his arm. You said we'd do this together. Together means I protect you while I handle the threat. This isn't a negotiation, Emmy. Before she could argue, Tyler appeared in the sliding glass door, rubbing sleepy eyes. Mommy, why is everyone here? Are we going somewhere? The sight of her son, confused and vulnerable, crystallized Emmy's priorities. Whatever was about to happen, Tyler's safety came first. We're going to visit some friends of Johnny's, she said calmly, kind of like a sleepover. Cool, can I bring my Pokemon cards? Of course, sweetheart. Go pack your backpack with some clothes and toys. As Tyler disappeared into his room, Emmy turned back to Johnny. Promise me you won't do anything reckless. Promise me this conversation with Vincent Torino doesn't end with you in a morgue. I promise I'll be careful. Johnny cupped her face in his hands. I promise I'll come back to you. You better. I love you, Johnny Salvatore. Don't make me regret it. Never, he whispered, kissing her forehead. I love you too, both of you, more than my own life. 20 minutes later, Emmy found herself in the back of an armored SUV with Tyler, speeding through Chicago's dark streets toward a destination she didn't know. Vincent sat in the passenger seat, coordinating with multiple security teams through an encrypted radio. Where are we going? She asked. Safe house in Lincoln Park, fully secured, round-the-clock protection, everything you need for an extended stay if necessary. How extended? Vincent met her eyes in the rearview mirror. That depends on how tonight goes. As they pulled into the underground garage of an elegant brownstone, Emmy realized they were less than 2 blocks from the park, where Tyler had first offered Johnny a sandwich. The irony wasn't lost on her. They'd come full circle, back to where this complicated love story had begun. But now, instead of a lonely man on a bench, Johnny was somewhere across the city, preparing for a confrontation that could end everything they'd built together. All she could do was wait, hope, and pray that love would be enough to bring him home. Vincent Torino's private club occupied the top floor of a downtown building he'd acquired through methods that didn't bear scrutiny. At 2 in the morning, the space was supposed to be empty except for security, which was why Vincent nearly choked on his bourbon when Johnny Salvatore walked through his office door like he owned the place. Evening, Vincent. Nice office. Terrible security. Johnny. Vincent reached slowly for the gun in his desk drawer. I heard you were laid up with some unfortunate injuries. Funny thing about recovery. Sometimes it goes faster than expected. Johnny moved into the room with predatory grace, his expensive suit impeccable despite the hour. Especially when you have something worth healing for. Your little nurse and her boy. I assume? Vincent's hand froze halfway to his weapon when he noticed the red laser dot dancing across his chest. How touching. The great Johnny Salvatore. Brought low by domestic bliss. Brought low? I prefer to think of it as finding purpose. Johnny settled into the chair across from Vincent's desk. Completely relaxed despite being in enemy territory. You made a mistake tonight, Vincent. Did I? You threatened my family. In our world, that requires a response. Vincent finally reached his gun, only to find his hand empty. Marco appeared from behind the bar, Vincent's weapon in his grip, his expression apologetic. Sorry, boss. I've been working for Mr. Salvatore for the past 8 months. The betrayal hit Vincent like a physical blow. Marco, you've been feeding Johnny information this entire time. Every move you planned, every strategy you discussed, every weakness you thought you'd found. Johnny's voice carried quiet satisfaction. Marco's been very thorough in his reports. The federal raids, the arrests. You knew we were coming because you fed us the information to begin with. I've been playing a longer game than you realized. Johnny leaned forward slightly. See, I could have ended this months ago. Could have eliminated you and your key people, taken your territory through traditional methods, but that would have required significant bloodshed. And I'm trying to become a better man. For Amy, for Tyler, for myself. Violence was always my father's first choice. I wanted to see if there was another way. Vincent's laugh was bitter. So you manipulated me into destroying myself? How is that better? Because this way most of your people survive. The ones who weren't directly involved in threatening my family get to walk away, find new employment. Your organization dissolves instead of exploding. Very humanitarian of you. Vincent's voice dripped sarcasm. But you're forgetting something important. Which is, I don't have anything left to lose. Vincent's smile turned vicious. Your nurse and her boy might be in a safe house, but safe houses can burn, and little boys can disappear forever. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Johnny's relaxed demeanor evaporated, replaced by something cold and utterly lethal. Marco, Johnny said quietly, please tell Mr. Torino what we discovered about his nephew's arrest. Marco cleared his throat. Anthony Torino wasn't just arrested on weapons charges. He was arrested with enough evidence to implicate Vincent in 12 federal crimes, including conspiracy to commit murder. The weapons charges will be dropped in exchange for his cooperation, Johnny continued, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Anthony is currently explaining to federal prosecutors how his uncle's organization operates. He's very thorough. Apparently, he's been keeping detailed records for years. Vincent went pale. Anthony cares more about avoiding life in prison than protecting your interests. Johnny stood, brushing imaginary dust from his jacket. He's already given them enough to secure indictments. The arrests will begin tomorrow. This is impossible. Anthony is family. Family is only as strong as its weakest link. Johnny's eyes were dark with promise. And you've been preying on my family. That ends tonight. What do you want? Complete withdrawal from Chicago. You and your remaining people disappear permanently. Your legitimate businesses will be sold to buyers of my choosing at fair market value. Your territories are forfeit, and if I refuse, then Anthony's cooperation becomes public knowledge, along with evidence of your involvement in the deaths of 3 federal witnesses. Your choice, exile or execution. Vincent stared at the man who'd systematically destroyed everything he'd built. You planned this entire war. I planned for survival. You forced my hand by targeting innocents. Johnny moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Vincent. If anything happens to Emmy Rivera or Tyler Rivera, anything at all, even years from now, I will hold you personally responsible. Is that clear? Crystal. Good. You have 48 hours to finalize arrangements and leave the city. Marco will be monitoring your compliance. After Johnny left, Vincent sat alone in his ruined empire, staring at the city lights that no longer belonged to him. He'd underestimated Johnny Salvatore completely, mistaking strategic patience for weakness. Now he was left with nothing but the clothes on his back and a 48-hour deadline to disappear forever. Across the city, in the Lincoln Park safe house, Emmy paced the elegant living room while Tyler slept in the master bedroom. Every creak of the building, every distant siren made her heart race with possibilities. Was Johnny safe? Had the confrontation gone as planned? Was he even now lying wounded somewhere, too proud to call for help? At 3:30 in the morning, she heard a car in the driveway, then footsteps on the front porch, then the sound of multiple locks being disengaged. Johnny walked through the front door looking tired but unharmed, his suit wrinkled but his dark eyes bright with something that looked like relief. Is it over? Emmy asked. It's over. He crossed the room in 3 strides, gathering her into his arms with desperate intensity. Vincent Torino is leaving Chicago permanently. His organization is finished. The threat is eliminated. Emmy pulled back to study his face, searching for signs of injury or deception. You're not hurt? There wasn't any violence? Sometimes the most effective battles are fought with information instead of guns. Johnny's smile was exhausted but genuine. Marco provided enough evidence to destroy Vincent's credibility with both his own people and federal law enforcement. He chose exile over annihilation. And your empire? Intact and stronger than before. Vincent's former territories are being absorbed by more reasonable leadership. The families that stayed neutral are now openly supportive. Johnny cupped her face in his hands. We can go home, Emmy. You and Tyler can go back to your normal lives. What about you? What kind of life do you go back to? Johnny was quiet for a moment, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. I've been thinking about that, about what kind of man I want to be going forward, about what kind of example I want to set for Tyler. And I think it's time for some significant changes in how the Salvatore family does business. Before Emmy could ask what that meant, Tyler appeared in the hallway, drawn by the sound of voices. Johnny, you came back. Did you win the grown-up chess game? I did, buddy. Johnny knelt to Tyler's level, his expression soft with affection. And now we can all go home together. Can we have pancakes for breakfast? I helped Mommy make coffee earlier, but I think pancakes would be better for celebrating. Pancakes sound perfect, Johnny agreed, lifting Tyler into a careful hug. We have a lot to celebrate. As they prepared to leave the safe house, Emmy felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The crisis was over. The immediate danger passed, but she also sensed that something fundamental had shifted in Johnny during their night apart. Whatever changes he was considering would shape not just his future, but theirs as well. The question was, what kind of life could they build together when the war was finally over? 2 weeks of peace felt like a different universe. Johnny's promise of normalcy had materialized in ways Emmy hadn't dared hope for. Tyler returned to school without bodyguards. She resumed her regular shifts at the hospital, and their evenings fell back into the comfortable routine of dinner, homework help, and family time that felt almost ordinary. Almost. The changes in Johnny were subtle, but profound. He still carried himself with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command. But there was a lightness to him that hadn't been there during the crisis. He laughed more easily, relaxed more completely, and spoke about the future as if it were something to look forward to rather than survive. I've been thinking, he said over dinner on a Thursday evening, watching Tyler demonstrate his improved chess skills against an electronic opponent, about making some changes to the family business. What kind of changes? Emmy asked, refilling his wineglass. Transitioning away from the more traditional activities, focusing on legitimate enterprises, construction, real estate development, security consulting for legal clients. Emmy set down the wine bottle carefully. Is that possible? Can you just go legitimate? It's complicated, but yes, other families have successfully made similar transitions over the years. It requires careful planning, strategic partnerships, and patience. But it's possible. What would that mean for your position? Would you still be Don Johnny Salvatore? Probably in name, if not in practice. The title carries respect and authority that would be useful in legitimate business. But the methods, the violence, the constant threat, that could end. Tyler looked up from his chess game. Are you going to get a different job, Johnny? Same job, but doing it differently, Johnny explained. Like if you decided to play chess but only using moves that helped both players have fun. That sounds nice. Less people would get their feelings hurt. Out of the mouths of babes. Johnny met Emmy's eyes across the table, his expression warm with possibility. Exactly right, buddy. That night, after Tyler was asleep, they sat together on Emmy's couch planning a future that felt simultaneously impossible and inevitable. How long would this transition take? Emmy asked. 5 years, maybe 7. Long enough for Tyler to understand what's happening, but young enough to grow up in a completely different environment. And you'd be happy? Running legitimate businesses instead of, she gestured vaguely, instead of inspiring fear and commanding through intimidation. Johnny's smile was rueful. I think I'd be relieved. This past month, watching Tyler, being part of a real family, it's shown me what I've been missing, what I want to build instead. Emmy curled closer to him, her head against his shoulder. It sounds wonderful, but are you sure it's what you want? Not just what you think I want to hear? I'm sure. Johnny's arms tightened around her. I want to be someone Tyler can be proud to know. I want to be someone you can build a life with, without constantly looking over your shoulder. I want to be someone I can live with. I love you exactly as you are, Johnny. You don't have to change for me. I'm not changing for you. I'm changing for us, all of us, including me. They were still planning their impossible future when Johnny's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. Marco, it's almost midnight. Johnny's expression shifted as he listened, his body going rigid with tension. Are you certain? No, don't do anything yet. I'm on my way. What is it? Emmy asked as he ended the call. Vincent Torino is back in Chicago. He was spotted at his old nightclub 2 hours ago, meeting with some of his former associates. Cold fear settled in Emmy's stomach. But you said he left permanently. He was supposed to. Either he's desperate enough to risk everything for revenge or— Johnny paused, his expression darkening. Or there's something I missed the first time. What does this mean? It means our peaceful interlude might be over. Johnny was already reaching for his jacket. I need to go assess the situation. You said we'd handle everything together. Emmy, if Vincent is back, if he's planning retaliation, I need to stop him before he gets close to you and Tyler. I can't do that effectively if I'm worried about your safety. And I can't sit here wondering if you're walking into a trap. They stared at each other across the sudden distance of returning danger. Finally, Johnny sighed. Vincent has security protocols for situations like this. You and Tyler go to the backup safe house while I handle Vincent. 2 hours, maybe 3, and this will be resolved permanently. You promise? I promise. Johnny kissed her forehead, then her lips, lingering as if trying to memorize the moment. I love you, Emmy. Whatever happens, remember that. The finality in his voice sent ice through her veins. Johnny, no arguments. Vincent will be here in 20 minutes to escort you and Tyler to safety. I'll meet you at the safe house as soon as this is finished. An hour later, Emmy sat in another elegant but sterile safe house, watching Tyler sleep and trying not to imagine all the ways Johnny's confrontation with Vincent Torino could go wrong. This safe house was larger than the first, with multiple bedrooms and a full kitchen, but it felt like a cage. Vincent, Johnny's lieutenant, maintained professional calm while coordinating with various security teams, but Emmy caught glimpses of worry in his expression when he thought she wasn't looking. How dangerous is this? She asked when Tyler was settled for the night. Vincent Torino has nothing left to lose, Vincent admitted. That makes him unpredictable. Desperate men make desperate choices. Is Johnny walking into an ambush? Mr. Salvatore doesn't walk into anything unprepared. He'll have backup, multiple exit strategies, complete intelligence on the situation before he makes a move. That's not an answer. Vincent met her eyes with sympathy and honesty. Yes, it's dangerous. But Mr. Salvatore has survived 7 years as head of this family by being smarter and more careful than his enemies. Trust him. At 3 in the morning, Vincent's phone rang. Emmy watched his face as he listened, her heart hammering against her ribs. Understood. Yes, she's here. No, everything's secure. Vincent ended the call with obvious relief. It's over. Mr. Salvatore is en route. Vincent Torino. No longer a problem. Permanently. Before Emmy could ask what that meant, she heard cars in the driveway, multiple vehicles arriving simultaneously. Moments later, Johnny walked through the front door, but something was wrong. His left arm was in a makeshift sling, his shirt was torn and there was blood on his knuckles. You're hurt. Emmy was across the room before she'd consciously decided to move. It's nothing serious. Vincent got desperate, tried to ambush me with 6 of his men. We were prepared. And Vincent won't be returning to Chicago again. Johnny's voice carried dark finality. This time the threat is eliminated permanently. Emmy studied his face. Seeing the controlled violence that had been necessary, the weariness that came after battle. How many people were hurt? 3 of Vincent's men chose to surrender. They'll be relocated with new identities, far from Chicago. The others, Johnny shrugged, made different choices. And Vincent decided he preferred to go down fighting rather than accept exile. His choice. The implications hung heavy between them. Violence had been necessary after all, despite Johnny's hopes for a peaceful resolution. Men had died tonight because Vincent Torino chose revenge over reason. I'm sorry, Johnny said quietly. I know you hoped we were past all this. Are we? Past all this? Vincent was the last real threat to our family's position. With him gone, the transition to legitimate business becomes much simpler. No one left to challenge the changes I want to make. Emmy touched his uninjured arm gently. Then it was worth it. Tyler's safety, our future, it was worth it. Even if it required violence. Even then, Emmy's voice was steady with conviction. You didn't start this fight, Johnny, but you finished it. You protected us. As they prepared to finally return home, Emmy reflected on how much had changed since Tyler first offered a sandwich to a sad stranger in the park. They'd found love, faced danger, survived a war, and emerged with the possibility of a peaceful future. But first, they had to heal from the wounds this final battle had inflicted and begin building the life they'd dreamed of during their quiet moments together. The question was, could Johnny really leave his violent world behind? Or would there always be another Vincent Torino, another threat? Another crisis that required the same dark solutions? Only time would tell if love was truly stronger than the legacy of violence that had shaped Johnny's entire life. 6 months after Vincent Torino's death, Johnny stood in the conference room of Salvatore Construction, studying blueprints for a new community center that would serve Lincoln Park's low-income families. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same neighborhood where he'd met Tyler was now benefiting from his family's transition to legitimate philanthropy. The foundation is approving the full funding, Marco reported, settling into his new role as Chief Operations Officer, with the same efficiency he'd brought to more dangerous work. Construction begins next month. Good. What about the Federal Oversight Committee? Clean review. No concerns about our financial backing or construction practices. Officially, we're just another successful development company with deep community ties. Johnny nodded, satisfied. The past 6 months had required delicate maneuvering, gradually reducing traditional family activities while expanding legitimate enterprises, maintaining respect within their world, while building credibility in the business community. It was working slowly but surely. Vincent, status report on the security consulting contracts. 3 new clients this month, all above board. Corporate executives, high-profile attorneys, 1 federal judge who specifically requested our services based on our reputation for discretion. Vincent's smile was dry. Amazing how many legitimate clients want protection from the same types of people we used to be. Are transitioning away from being, Vincent corrected diplomatically. Johnny's phone buzzed with a text from Emmy. Tyler's recital is at 7, don't forget. Right, Tyler's piano recital. 6 months ago, the idea of Johnny Salvatore sitting in an elementary school auditorium listening to children play chopsticks would have been unthinkable. Now, it was the highlight of his week. Gentlemen, we'll continue this tomorrow. I have a more important engagement. An hour later, Johnny sat in the 3rd row of Jefferson Elementary's multi-purpose room, watching Tyler navigate a simplified version of Für Elise with the focused determination of a concert pianist. Emmy sat beside him, her face glowing with maternal pride, occasionally reaching over to squeeze Johnny's hand during particularly impressive passages. He's been practicing for weeks, she whispered during the applause. He wanted to make sure you'd be proud of him. Johnny's throat tightened with emotion. Tyler wanted to make him proud. This remarkable child who'd offered kindness to a stranger now sought approval from the man who'd become his father figure. The responsibility was humbling and terrifying and wonderful all at once. After the recital, they celebrated at Tyler's favorite pizza restaurant, where the 8-year-old regaled them with detailed analysis of every performance, including his own. Mrs. Patterson said I have natural rhythm, but I need to work on my finger positioning. Do you think I could get better with more practice? Johnny? I think you can get better at anything you put your mind to, Johnny replied, meaning every word. But more importantly, do you enjoy playing piano? I love it. It's like math, but with feelings. Emmy laughed. That might be the most accurate description of music I've ever heard. Will you help me practice tomorrow? Mommy's good, but she doesn't know about the technical stuff like you do. Johnny blinked in surprise. I know about technical musical stuff? You know about everything, Tyler said with 8-year-old certainty. And you listen really carefully when I play. That helps me hear the mistakes. Later that evening, after Tyler was asleep, Johnny and Emmy sat on her couch, their couch now since he'd been staying over most nights for the past month, discussing Tyler's musical education and Johnny's ongoing business transition. How's the legitimate life treating you? Emmy asked, curled against his side. Better than I expected. More complicated in some ways, simpler in others. Fewer death threats, more zoning board meetings. Do you miss it? The power, the fear, the immediate respect? Johnny considered the question seriously. Sometimes, there's an efficiency to commanding through intimidation that board meetings and permit applications don't provide. But then Tyler asks me to help with his piano practice, or you come home from a difficult shift and just want to talk about normal things, and I remember why I'm making these changes. No regrets. Only that it took me 40 years to figure out what actually matters. Emmy shifted to face him more directly. Johnny, I need to ask you something important. Her tone made him immediately alert. What is it? Tyler asked me yesterday why you don't live here officially. Why you still have your apartment across town when you're here every night. Johnny's heart began beating faster. What did you tell him? I told him that adults sometimes need time to figure out big changes. But the truth is, I don't know why we're still pretending this is temporary. Emmy, are you waiting for something to feel different? For the transition to be complete? For some sign that it's safe to fully commit? I'm waiting, Johnny said carefully. To be sure that I'm someone you want to build a permanent life with. Someone Tyler deserves to have as a father figure. I've changed a lot in the past year, but I'm still Johnny Salvatore. There will always be people who remember what that name used to mean. And I need to know that you're choosing me with full understanding of what that means long-term. The whispers at school events, the careful background checks before Tyler's friends can come to sleepovers, the reality that some doors may always be closed to us because of my past. Emmy was quiet for a moment, processing his words. Do you know what Tyler told me the other day? What? He said he hopes you decide to be his real dad soon, because he's tired of explaining to his friends why the man who comes to all his school events and helps with homework doesn't officially live with us. Johnny felt the walls around his heart crumble completely. He said that. He wants you to adopt him, Johnny, officially. He wants to be Tyler Salvatore. Emmy, Johnny's voice broke slightly. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I'm saying that Tyler and I have made our decision. We want you here permanently. We want to be a real family with all the complications that entails. The question is, what do you want? I want, Johnny said, his voice rough with emotion, to wake up in this house every morning for the rest of my life. I want to help Tyler with piano practice and homework and dating advice when he's older. I want to marry you and adopt him and build something real and lasting and good. Then do it. Emmy's smile was radiant. Move in officially. Propose to me. Let's stop pretending this is temporary and start building our future. Johnny pulled her closer, kissing her with all the love and gratitude and hope he'd been carrying for months. When they broke apart, both were crying. There's one more thing, Emmy whispered against his lips. What? Tyler's been practicing a new song. Something special he wants to play for you when you officially become his dad. What song? Ave Maria. He said it's the most beautiful song he knows, and he wants to play beautiful music for his family. Johnny held Emmy tighter, overwhelmed by the simple perfection of their life together. Tomorrow he would start making the arrangements, moving his belongings, meeting with adoption lawyers, planning a proposal worthy of the woman who'd saved his soul. Tonight, he would simply hold her close and marvel at the miracle of ordinary love transforming an extraordinary life. But across the city, someone was watching their happiness with cold calculation. Vincent Torino was dead, but his legacy of revenge lived on in unexpected places. The Salvatore family's transition to legitimacy had not gone unnoticed by other interested parties, and some debts once incurred could never be fully paid. Right the morning Johnny officially moved into Emmy's house, Tyler presented him with a hand-drawn certificate, declaring him best almost dad in Chicago, and a serious request for adoption papers. As soon as possible, please. 6 months later, on a perfect October morning in the same park where their story began, Johnny knelt on one knee while Tyler hid behind a tree with a camera, capturing the moment Emmy said yes to becoming Mrs. Salvatore. The wedding was small, held in the garden behind Francesca's restaurant, with Tyler serving as ring-bearer and best man simultaneously. Marco officiated, having obtained ministerial credentials online specifically for the occasion. Vincent gave Emmy away, since her father had passed years earlier, and Johnny's lieutenant had become family in every way that mattered. Tyler's rendition of Ave Maria during the ceremony moved every guest to tears, but none more than Johnny, who finally understood what his father had meant about family being the only legacy that truly mattered. The adoption was finalized 3 weeks later. Tyler Salvatore walked out of the courthouse with a new last name, a legal father, and plans to celebrate with pizza and arcade games, because some traditions, he insisted, should never change. By the time they'd been married for a year, the Salvatore family's transformation was complete. Johnny's construction company had built 2 community centers, renovated 3 schools, and employed over 200 people in legitimate, well-paying jobs. His security consulting firm protected judges, prosecutors, and business executives from the same criminal elements his family had once been part of. The Federal Oversight Committee that had monitored their transition submitted a final report, declaring the Salvatore organization a model for successful rehabilitation of organized crime families. Johnny kept the letter framed in his office, not for pride, but as a reminder of how far they'd traveled from the broken man Tyler had found in the park. Are you happy? Emmy asked one evening as they watched Tyler practice piano in their living room. At 10, he showed real musical talent and had begun composing simple melodies of his own. Deliriously, Johnny replied, pulling her closer on the couch. You? Sometimes I can't believe this is real. That we get to be this normal, this happy. It's real, Johnny murmured against her hair. We made it real. Tyler finished his practice session and joined them on the couch, settling between his parents with the easy confidence of a child who'd never doubted his place in their affections. Dad, can we go to the park tomorrow? I want to show you the new playground equipment. Of course. Johnny smiled at the title that still made his heart skip. Same park where we first met? Yeah. Maybe we'll see other sad people who need sandwiches. Emmy laughed. Tyler, you can't just assume everyone needs sandwiches. But it worked with Dad, Tyler pointed out with irrefutable logic. Maybe it'll work with other people too. The next afternoon, the three of them walked hand in hand through Lincoln Park, past the bench where Johnny had sat in despair 18 months earlier. The playground bustled with families, children's laughter mixing with parents' conversations in the perfect symphony of ordinary happiness. Tyler ran ahead to explore the new climbing structure, while Johnny and Emmy settled on a nearby bench. Not the same bench where it all began, but close enough to appreciate the symmetry. Do you ever wonder how different our lives would be if Tyler had been too shy to approach a stranger that day? Emmy asked. Every day, Johnny admitted. And every day I'm grateful for his courage. He saved us both, didn't he? He showed us both what love looks like. Johnny watched their son navigate the climbing wall with careful determination. Real love. Uncomplicated, generous, transformative love. As the afternoon sun began to set, casting golden light across the park, Tyler ran back to his parents with grass stains on his knees and joy in his green eyes. Can we come back tomorrow? And maybe bring extra sandwiches just in case. Johnny and Emmy exchanged a look of perfect understanding. Their son's compassion, the quality that had brought them together, remained as pure and powerful as ever. We can definitely bring extra sandwiches, Johnny agreed. You never know who might need one. As they walked home together, the former crime boss, the nurse who'd saved his soul, and the boy who'd shown them both what family really meant, Johnny reflected on the impossible journey that had brought them to this moment. He'd lost an empire built on fear and gained a kingdom built on love. He'd traded a life of isolation and violence for one of connection and peace. He'd discovered that the most powerful position a man could hold wasn't don or boss or leader. It was husband, father, family. And in the end, that transformation hadn't required weapons or strategies or careful maneuvering. It had required nothing more than accepting the gift of a peanut butter sandwich, offered by a child, who saw sadness and chose kindness instead. Sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the simplest gestures. Sometimes salvation comes wrapped in store-brand bread. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, a lonely man in a park gets a second chance to discover what really matters. Johnny Salvatore had found his second chance, and he would spend the rest of his life proving worthy of it.